Sheikh Khalid al-Rashid and Maria de la Cruz, two strangers from different worlds bound by a $3 million promise. He, a Dubai billionaire obsessed with purity and control. She, a poor Filipina girl dreaming of a better life. Their marriage was meant to be a fairy tale, but on their wedding night, a secret was uncovered that turned love into rage and paradise into a crime scene no one dared to question. Sheikh Khalid al-Rashid was one of the most powerful men in Dubai, a figure surrounded by wealth, servants, and silent admiration. Born into an oil dynasty, his name commanded respect, and his money could open any door. Yet, behind the shimmering glass walls of his penthouse, he lived a life hollowed by disappointment. For marriages had ended in scandal. One wife ran away, another leaked his secrets to the press, and the last left him with a bruised ego and an empty heart. The sheik had everything except what he truly craved, a woman who was untouched, innocent, and unquestioning. That desire soon became an obsession. He began searching quietly through private marriage agencies that specialized in traditional brides, women who could bring him the illusion of purity. He demanded someone young, modest, and foreign, someone who would see him as more than just a man of power. His assistants scoured profiles across Asia, Eastern Europe, and Africa, sending photos and documents to his desk daily. Each rejection fueled his frustration until one evening he saw a picture of a young Filipina girl. She looked simple, with soft brown eyes and a shy smile that reminded him of the innocence he thought no longer existed. He felt something stir inside him, not love, but possession. He ordered his staff to contact the agent immediately and offered $3 million in dowry without hesitation. For Sheikh Khalid, this wasn't about affection or companionship, it was about ownership, about reclaiming control over what he had lost in his previous failures. As the deal began to move forward, his palace staff whispered quietly among themselves. They had seen the sheik obsessed before, but never like this. Something about this pursuit felt darker, more desperate, as though he was chasing redemption through another's purity. Maria de la Cruz grew up in a small fishing village in the Philippines, where the sun rose over the sea and life moved slowly. Her mother sold fruits in the local market, and her younger siblings depended on her for food and school fees. Maria was bright but poor, with dreams far too big for her tiny home. When her father died in a boat accident, she left school to work in Manila as a waitress in a crowded restaurant. Every day, she served wealthy customers, imagining what it might feel like to live their lives even for a moment. She wasn't greedy, just tired of struggling. When a woman named Madame Celeste approached her with promises of a marriage to a rich foreign man, Maria hesitated. Celeste said the man was a sheik from Dubai, powerful, generous, and looking for a pure-hearted bride. Maria laughed at first, thinking it was a joke. But when Celeste mentioned a $3 million dowry that would go straight to her family, everything changed. That amount could rebuild their home, send her siblings to school, and lift them out of poverty forever. Maria's mother cried with joy when she heard the offer, believing it was a miracle from God. The documents came quickly: passport, visa, medical checks, all handled by people Maria had never met. They treated her kindly, assuring her she would live like a princess. Deep inside, she felt a mix of fear and excitement. She told herself this was her destiny, a chance to rewrite her family's future. On the night before her flight, she sat by the window, watching the stars, unaware that the path ahead would not lead to a fairy tale, but into the dark heart of a world where innocence could be bought and destroyed. The arrangement was sealed within days, swift and silent, as if it were a business deal rather than a union. The sheik's lawyers drafted contracts that looked more like property agreements than marriage papers. Everything had to appear legal, but every word carried control. Maria was told to sign where instructed, her consent guided by the promise of a brighter life. The sheik never spoke directly to her. All communication came through Madame Celeste and the sheik's assistants. They arranged medical tests to confirm her health and purity, though Maria didn't understand the depth of what they checked for. The reports were handled by a private clinic that worked under strict orders to deliver only what the sheik wanted to see. The agent reassured Maria that it was standard procedure, while behind closed doors, forged papers and altered results were exchanged for thick envelopes of cash. Maria's mother received the first $1 million, and the payment changed everything. Neighbors suddenly respected them. Their debts vanished overnight, and her family began building a new house by the sea. Maria's departure became a story of pride in the village, a poor girl marrying into royalty. As her flight day neared, Maria was taken to a private residence in Manila for final preparations. There, she was trained in etiquette, told how to walk, speak, and behave like a submissive wife. She was warned never to question or argue, only to obey. "You are his dream," Celeste said, smiling coldly. When Maria finally boarded the private jet bound for Dubai, she felt both awe and unease. The air smelled of perfume and secrets. She told herself to trust fate, unaware that the very people arranging her happily ever after were selling her into a trap carefully designed by greed and deceit. When Maria arrived in Dubai, the heat wrapped around her like fire. From the airplane window, she had imagined a city of light and opportunity, but as soon as she stepped into the Sheikh's world, it felt like entering another reality. A convoy of black luxury cars awaited her, driven by silent men in suits. She was taken directly to the Sheikh's private palace, miles away from the city's bright skyline. The gates opened to reveal vast gardens, marble fountains, and golden statues that shimmered under the desert sun. It was beautiful, but it didn't feel like home. Every corner of the palace carried an air of quiet control. Servants bowed, but never smiled. Guards stood like shadows near every door. Maria's movements were watched, her questions ignored. Her room was enormous, filled with expensive fabrics and jewelry boxes she was afraid to touch. A wardrobe of designer dresses awaited her, each chosen by the Sheikh's staff. Every night, she dined alone in a grand hall, with plates of exotic food she couldn't pronounce. Days passed in silence, with only a few brief visits from the palace attendants who trained her to behave like royalty. They told her what to say, how to smile, how to hide emotions. The Sheikh remained distant, appearing only once from across the garden, a tall man in white robes with eyes that seemed to measure everything he saw. Maria tried to convince herself that this was the beginning of her new life, that love might grow with time. But the more she wandered through the palace's endless corridors, the more she realized she was not a bride being welcomed into a home. She was a prized possession, placed inside a cage so beautiful it almost disguised the bars. The wedding took place 2 weeks after Maria's arrival, a ceremony shrouded in secrecy and wealth. There were no crowds, no music echoing through the streets, only a carefully selected group of guests, close relatives, business partners, and a few royal acquaintances. Every detail had been arranged by the Sheikh's team, from the imported roses to the handcrafted golden utensils. The event was held in the palace's grand hall, where chandeliers hung like frozen stars above polished marble floors. Maria wore a gown made of silk and diamonds, a masterpiece designed to impress, not to comfort. Her hands trembled as attendants placed a jeweled tiara on her head. She was told to keep her eyes down and smile when the Sheikh approached. When he entered, the room fell silent. The Sheikh's presence was commanding, his expression unreadable. He placed a gold ring on Maria's finger, his hand firm, almost possessive. Their vows were spoken softly in front of an officiant flown in from Abu Dhabi, ensuring the marriage was legally recognized. Cameras were forbidden, as the Sheikh disliked public attention on his private affairs. After the ceremony, the guests congratulated him with cautious admiration, whispering about the enormous dowry and the beauty of his new bride. The reception that followed was filled with opulence, dishes from every corner of the world, musicians playing quietly, and servants moving like ghosts. Maria sat beside the Sheikh, but felt invisible, her mind drifting between fear and disbelief. She wanted to call her mother, to share the moment, but her phone had been taken days ago. As the night grew darker and the last guest departed, she was escorted to her new quarters. The palace was silent again, and for the first time, she felt that something inside that silence was waiting for her. That night, the palace was unusually quiet. The air felt heavy, as if the walls themselves were listening. Maria was led to the master suite, a room larger than her entire home in the Philippines. The bed was covered in white silk, and candles flickered along the edges of the room. She had been told that tonight she would finally become the Sheikh's wife in every sense. Her heart raced, not with love, but with unease. She tried to steady her breath, reminding herself that this was her destiny, the reason she had come so far. The Sheikh entered without a word, his footsteps echoing across the marble floor. His face was calm, but his eyes carried suspicion. Hours earlier, one of his personal doctors had delivered a confidential report. The medical documents sent from Manila didn't match the new results taken in Dubai. The inconsistencies were clear. Someone had falsified the test that was meant to confirm Maria's virginity. The Sheikh felt betrayed, humiliated, and furious. He saw the entire marriage as a fraud, his pride wounded before it even began. As Maria stood there, unaware of what he had discovered, the tension grew unbearable. The Sheikh's silence felt colder than anger. He questioned the agency's honesty in his mind, but his rage quickly turned toward the fragile girl before him. To him, she represented deceit. Without explanation, he turned away, his expression dark and controlled. That night, no celebration followed, no gentle words were spoken. Maria lay awake in tears, sensing that something terrible had changed, though she didn't understand why. In another part of the palace, the Sheikh sat alone in his private study, staring at the forged papers, his mind already plotting how to uncover who had dared to deceive him. By morning, the palace had shifted into an atmosphere of quiet tension. Servants moved carefully, avoiding eye contact, sensing that something dreadful had happened during the night. The Sheikh did not appear for breakfast, nor did Maria. Behind locked doors, he summoned his head of security and ordered a private investigation. He wanted answers: who had lied to him, who had forged the documents, and whether Maria herself had been part of the deception. The doctor who performed the tests was interrogated, and within hours, the truth began to unravel. The agency that arranged the marriage had manipulated results, selling false reports to secure the massive dowry. The Sheikh's fury deepened as he realized millions had been stolen from him. But even after learning this, his anger didn't cool. Instead of blaming the criminals who orchestrated the scam, his wounded pride turned against Maria. In his mind, she was the face of humiliation, the symbol of his disgrace. That afternoon, he ordered that her room be locked and that no one speak to her. The servants were instructed to bring her food, but never to enter. Maria, frightened and confused, begged to know what she had done wrong, but no one answered. The Sheikh avoided her completely, shutting himself away in his office, surrounded by files and investigators. He promised himself that the agency would pay, but first, he wanted to make Maria understand what it meant to deceive him. To him, punishment was justice. To her, the silence became unbearable. She prayed each night for forgiveness, unaware that mercy was not part of his world. Outside her locked door, the sound of heavy boots and hushed whispers reminded her that the palace was no longer a home. It had become a prison built from gold and rage. The following morning, the palace guards discovered something alarming. Maria's room was empty. The door, once locked from the outside, now hung slightly open. The bed was untouched, the tray of untouched food still beside it, but Maria was gone. Panic spread quietly through the palace halls. No alarms were raised at first. The Sheikh wanted silence. He ordered his men to search every corner of the estate, every garden, and every servant's quarter. No one had seen her leave, and the security team insisted that all gates had been locked overnight. Yet somehow, she had vanished without a trace. By afternoon, whispers began among the staff. Some believed she had escaped through the gardens, slipping into the desert under the moonlight. Others thought she had been taken by force. A few servants swore they had heard muffled cries in the night, but were too afraid to check. The Sheikh remained calm on the surface, but his fury grew with every passing hour. He couldn't allow the story to reach the media. The idea of a runaway bride would humiliate him. He called in private investigators, men loyal only to him, to search beyond the palace walls. Maria's belongings were gathered and examined, her passport missing, her shoes left behind. To the Sheikh, it confirmed his worst fear. She had fled with help from the agency, perhaps even with stolen money or jewelry. Yet deep down, something didn't fit. No cameras had captured her leaving, and the palace was surrounded by guards that night. Still, he told everyone she was a liar and a thief. But as night fell again, even his own men whispered that Maria hadn't escaped at all. Something had happened inside those walls, something their master wanted no one to uncover. 3 days after Maria's disappearance, the Dubai police received a call from an anonymous source. A construction worker had discovered a bundle wrapped in silk sheets near an abandoned development site on the outskirts of the city. When officers arrived, they found the body of a young woman, bruised and lifeless, her face partially covered. The silk matched the fabric used in the Sheikh's palace bedrooms. Within hours, forensic tests confirmed her identity. It was Maria de la Cruz. The news spread quietly among investigators, but was immediately silenced by orders from higher authorities. The Sheikh, when contacted, appeared shocked and denied any knowledge of what had happened. He claimed Maria had run away with stolen jewelry and that she must have met trouble while trying to flee the country. However, detectives who visited the palace found troubling signs. There were faint traces of blood on the marble near her locked room, and a broken bracelet lay hidden beneath the bed. The Sheikh's staff offered rehearsed answers, repeating that Maria had left willingly. One maid, trembling, whispered that she had seen two guards carrying something large down the hallway that night, but she retracted her statement the next day. The Sheikh's legal team quickly intervened, ensuring every conversation went through them. Despite the pressure, one investigator couldn't ignore the inconsistencies. The missing security footage, the sudden silence of witnesses, and the speed at which the Sheikh's story spread. Still, with his influence and money, the case moved slowly. Files disappeared, and officers were reassigned. To the world, the incident was labeled an unfortunate accident. To those who had seen the palace's hidden corridors and heard Maria's final screams, it was something far darker, an act buried beneath luxury, silence, and fear. When investigators demanded the palace's surveillance footage, the Sheikh's security chief handed over carefully selected clips, claiming that several hours of recording had been lost due to a technical malfunction. The missing hours happened to be the exact time frame when Maria vanished. The excuse was convenient, too perfect. Still, the police accepted it, bound by the unspoken rule that certain men were above suspicion. Yet one junior investigator persisted. He quietly examined backup data and managed to recover a short, grainy segment from a hallway camera. The footage showed a dimly lit corridor at midnight. A shadowed figure appeared, carrying what looked like a large bundle draped in white silk. Seconds later, another man followed, taller, broader, and wearing the traditional robes of the Sheikh's family. The image was blurry, but investigators recognized him as Faisal al-Rashid, the Sheikh's younger brother, a man infamous for handling the family's dirtiest affairs. When confronted, Faisal laughed off the footage, claiming it was an old recording from a delivery. Still, his confidence only deepened the suspicions. The junior officer who recovered the clip was transferred the following week. All official evidence was sealed. Rumors began to spread quietly through the palace staff. Some said Faisal had taken Maria to teach her a lesson after the Sheikh's humiliation. Others whispered that the Sheikh himself had given the order, unable to bear the thought of public shame. The truth twisted through layers of fear and lies. When the Sheikh later donated a large sum to the police charity fund, the investigation slowed to a crawl. The footage disappeared into confidential archives, never to be seen again. To the outside world, the Sheikh mourned his lost bride. But behind closed doors, the truth was buried with her. The case that had once promised to expose one of Dubai's most powerful men quietly dissolved into silence. Official reports labeled Maria's death as unexplained circumstances, and within weeks, public interest faded. The Sheikh's lawyers moved swiftly, filing documents that portrayed him as a grieving husband whose young wife had tragically run away. A few journalists tried to pursue the story, but they were warned by editors that such matters were not to be discussed. Behind the scenes, money flowed like water. Bribes, settlements, and hush agreements ensured that no one dared to speak. The Sheikh's staff were replaced, the guards reassigned, and the palace was renovated to erase every trace of the event. Maria's room was emptied, her belongings burned under the pretext of cleansing the memory. Her mother, in the Philippines, waited for updates that never came. When she tried contacting the agency, their office had vanished, phones disconnected, records erased as though they had never existed. The remaining dowry payments stopped, leaving the family devastated and silenced by fear. For the Sheikh, life returned to its polished routine. He hosted lavish parties, expanded his business empire, and even began discussions about another marriage, this time to a European socialite. Yet something in his demeanor changed. He became colder, more withdrawn, his temper sharper. Occasionally, servants claimed to hear him pacing alone at night, speaking to no one. Though he had escaped the law, he couldn't escape the whispers. People in high places knew what had really happened, even if they pretended not to. The story of the Filipina bride lingered like a shadow, unspoken, but never forgotten, another secret buried beneath the glittering surface of Dubai's untouchable elite. Almost a year after Maria's death, her story resurfaced in the most unexpected way. A former palace maid, who had fled Dubai out of fear, contacted a freelance journalist in Manila. She claimed to possess something that could prove what really happened inside the Sheikh's palace. A series of photos she had secretly taken of Maria's diary. The pages, handwritten in blue ink, revealed the young bride's thoughts during her short time in Dubai. She had written about her fear, her loneliness, and her growing suspicion that the Sheikh was not the man he appeared to be. Her last entry was dated the night she vanished, describing footsteps outside her door and the feeling that she was being watched. When the journalist published excerpts of the diary online, the story went viral overnight. Global news outlets picked it up, reigniting anger and disbelief. Protests emerged in the Philippines, demanding justice for Maria. Under pressure from international organizations, Dubai authorities were forced to reopen the investigation. But when investigators returned to the palace, the Sheikh was gone. His private jet had departed weeks earlier, his exact location unknown. Rumors suggested he had relocated to a private island in the Maldives, far beyond the reach of the law. The reopened case uncovered evidence of forged documents, missing witnesses, and offshore accounts tied to the marriage agency. Yet, without the Sheikh, there was no trial, no closure. Maria's diary became her voice from beyond the grave, a symbol of how innocence and greed had collided in a world ruled by power. Though justice never came, her story continued to echo across screens and headlines, reminding everyone that even in palaces of gold, the darkest secrets cannot stay hidden forever.